Hi everyone, this is May Park. Welcome to another video tutorial in my blog and YouTube channel. Today I'm going to show you how to use distress inks to create a watercolor background. This video is part of Simon Says Stamp Sending Sunshine Release Blog Hub, celebrating a release of new stamps, dies, and stencils. Make sure to check out my blog for more details and leave a comment on my blog hub post for a chance to win a $25 gift certificate to the Simon Says Stamp online store. These are some of new stamps and dies from Simon Says Stamp Sending Sunshine collection. I just love all of their new products, but today I'm going to use the Spring Flower Burst and Risk Greetings stamp sets. This is the card I create for my practice. I didn't plan out my design in the beginning, but I love how it turned out, so I decided to go with this design. I'm going to use Canson watercolor paper today, but you could use any watercolor paper you may already have. I'll be taping down my watercolor paper onto the chipboard sheet using washi tape. This process will help me prevent my paper from warping while I apply lots of water on my watercolor paper. Then I'm going to draw a rectangle frame using A2 size scrap paper. You don't have to do this, but I prefer to have an A2 size frame as a guide so I know where to watercolor. I'm going to pull out my watercolor paint brushes, number 10 and number 12. When you create a watercolor wash background, I recommend you use a large paintbrush so it can hold lots of water at once. As you can see, I have a piece of white paper inside clear sleeve as my watercolor palette. This is useful because I can figure out how the colors would look like on the white surface. Today I'm using a couple of Timur's Distress ink, mustard seed, and peacock feathers. You can use traditional watercolor paints if you want to, but I wanted to show you how you can get more out of your water-based dye inks. I'm going to start by applying lots of water over my watercolor paper so the color moves around easier when I apply ink. Now I'm squishing my ink pads onto the palette and picking up the colors with my wet paintbrush. I'm going to color the whole panel with some yellow and teal, and I will not leave any of the white. I'm making sure I keep lots of water on my watercolor paper, and I'm using my heat tool to speed up the drying time between each layer. After my watercolor panel was dry, I'm going to repeat the process and keep adding more color to create a contoured, messy background. But I ended up not using this watercolor panel because I wasn't happy that the colors didn't blend well together and left some harsh lines here and there. I think that's because I dried the colors too quickly with my heat tool. So I'm going to create my second background using a heat tool less. At least I'm going to keep the distance between my watercolor panel and heat tool so the colors dry slowly. I'm also going to pick up some of the excess water around the edge of my panel using a paper towel because I don't want to create harsh, edgy, or intense color. I'm using my wet paintbrush to help those colors move around. Now I'm going to turn on some music and speed up the process. I'll be back soon. set aside my watercolor panel for about 10 minutes to air dry. Then I'm picking up the color with my paintbrush and I'm going to add some splatters onto my background to add a little bit more interest. I'm also going to use Ranger Perfect Pearls to add some shimmer on my background. You can flick the water onto the watercolor panel with your fingers or paintbrush and dab up water splatters with a paper towel to create some subtle texture. You can also create a different look by choosing various sizes of paintbrushes. Then I'm peeling up the washi tape and removing my watercolor panel from the chipboard. I'm cutting down my watercolor panel into 4 by 5¼ inches using Timur's Tony paper trimmer. I'm prepping my watercolor piece with Inka embossing magic powder bag to remove any moisture, static, and oils. You can also use EK Success embossing powder tool. This step helps prevent any stray powder from sticking to unwanted areas. I'm pulling out my flower stamp from Simon Says Stamp Spring Flower Burst stamp set. Then I'm going to ink up the stamp with the Simon Says Stamp clear ink. You can use any type of watermark or embossing ink for stamping. Then I'm closing the misty door to stamp it onto my paper. While the ink is still wet, I'm going to sprinkle some Heroes white detail embossing powder of the stamped image and tap the excess powder off my watercolor piece. I'm using my dry paintbrush to flick away any stray powder. Then I heat set my image with my heat tool until it's completely melted. You can stamp your image with embossing ink and then heat emboss it first and create a watercolor background later if you want to. I'm going to stamp the image twice or 3 times in the same position because I knew I couldn't get a good impression due to the texture of watercolor paper. This is the beauty of using the Misty stamping tool. This tool helps me stamp the image in a same and perfect placement to get a good and intense impression. If you don't have this Misty stamping tool, you could use a regular acrylic block or stamp press for stamping. And it doesn't matter that much if you leave some stray embossing powders on the background, as they would also look like white ink splatters. It's now time to open my sentiment. I'm going to stamp the sentiment from Simon Says Stamp Risk Greetings stamp set with Simon Says Stamp clear ink and heat emboss it with alternate antique gold embossing powder. If you add a gold die-cut word in a script font, I think that would also look pretty. After my embossed background is done, I'll be mounting my watercolor panel on the A2 size white top folding card base using 3M foam tape. Then I'm going to prep a piece of black cardstock with Inka embossing magic powder bag as I'll be heat embossing the sentiment. Then I'm going to stamp the sentiment from Simon Says Stamp Hello You stamp set with Simon Says Stamp clear ink and heat emboss it with Heroes white detail embossing powder. I'm trimming my sentiment into a thin strip using a craft knife and ruler. Next, I'm going to mount my sentiment strip banner below the gold embossed sentiment using 3M foam tape to give some dimension. I'm using my T-square ruler to place my sentiment in straight. To add some interest on my flowers, I'm going to add some dots using Tonic Nuvo crystal drops. I'm not sure if that was a good decision though, because I ended up adding too much Nuvo drops. I just couldn't stop. I still like my first practice card better than the card I showed the process in the video. What do you think? Before I go, I'm going to pull the camera back to show you how my craft desk looks like after my project is done. This is a clamp mount that I used to film the video with my iPhone. While I make cards, I usually watch TV shows like How I Met Your Mother or Gilmore Girls. This time I'm listening to the audiobook I found on YouTube and it's called By Your Side. This weekend I'm going to do some craft room makeover so it helps me organize my craft supplies better while making cards. If you want to see my organized craft room, please leave a comment below. If there are many requests, I'll plan to include it in my next video. That's all for today. I hope that you've enjoyed this video and my card inspired you to create a watercolor background using distress inks. If you have any questions, please leave comments below and I'd be happy to answer them for you. If you like my video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And don't forget to visit my blog to see more details of my card and enter the giveaway. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time with another video. Bye bye!